Insurance Group. I wanted to take a few minutes to try to answer some questions and do some training on the business income extra expense form that is found on a lot of small business policies, BOPs, and a lot of standard package policies. This is the topic of conversation as to why COVID-19 is likely not covered under your business income. I say the word likely because this is not legal advice. I am not a lawyer. If you feel like you want to submit a claim to your insurance carrier, then do so. But I also believe that people need to understand what their policy provides coverage for and doesn't before the loss and after. So I wanted to review a standard ISO, Insurance Service Office's business income form. I recommend that you go take a look at your own policy, contact your agent, ask them for your forms, copy of your policy, and then read them. So this is, again, just educational. This is one example of an ISO form. So you'll notice here at the top that it says business income extra expense form. The beginning of the policy on this page reads, what is business income? So it talks about what your coverage is. And here at the bottom is where it defines two really important pieces to this coverage. The first, it says what they will pay for. So it says, we will pay for the actual loss of business income you sustain due to the necessary suspension of your operations during a period of restoration. So those terms are going to be defined somewhere else in your 1, 2, 3, 400 page policy. Here's where it says the suspension must be caused by a direct physical loss of or damage to property at the premise, which is listed in the declarations. So rule number one is if you have a business and you have more than one location, it is critical for all coverages that you have each location listed because your business income is tied to that definition most of the time. So here, if I'm a restaurant, for example, my location is here. And it does say that direct physical loss. The second part of that talks about the loss or damage must be caused by or result from a covered cause of loss. So in your policy, there are definitions of what's covered. To use an extreme, think about flood or war. War is not covered, neither is flood, typically speaking. You have to buy flood from a FEMA policy or an excess seller. So there are causes of loss that are just not covered. So you have to go back to what is covered and seek that definition. So first of all, you have to have physical damage at your location from a covered cause of loss. So then you have to look at COVID-19 through those three parameters. The second part of coverage is extra expense, and I want to highlight that to kind of explain that it's an additional coverage for extra expenses you would have during your period of restoration that you would have not incurred had there been no direct physical loss or damage to property caused by that covered cause of loss. So let me give you a real life example. You're a restaurant. I'm a restaurant. I have a fire at my location and I cannot open. So effective tomorrow, I have no customers coming in. Please note that you want to look at your waiting period on your policy for business income. Those can be anywhere from 0 to 72 hours, maybe longer. What that means is if I have a fire today and it's a Monday and it's my slow day, my deductible, what I pay first, is that, say it's 24 hours, is the first 24 hours of business income loss. I won't get reimbursed. But what if you have a 72-hour waiting period and the loss happens Thursday night, so you're closed Friday, Saturday, Sunday? If those are your three biggest days, you need to be really aware that that's not going to have any coverage. So really important to talk to your agent about your waiting period if your business derives income on a daily basis. So this is your business income and extra expense. And again, it goes back to physical damage to property at your location from a covered cause of loss. The only other page I'll go through quick on this one is resumption of operations. There's a lot of talk about people not reopening. Please be aware and talk to your agent, your small business attorney, whoever else might be relevant, that part of the coverage says if you do not resume operations or do not resume them as quickly as possible, that they will pay based on the length of time it should have taken to resume operations. So let's say that April 1st, businesses are allowed to reopen, but you choose not to. That I believe would trigger the fact that they would only pay between the date you were closed and the date that you were allowed to resume. If you choose not to reopen, the interpretation would be, and again, I'm not a lawyer, is that at that moment that you've closed your doors, notified people, canceled insurance, whatever other actions you take indicating that you're closing your business, any possible future coverage, legislatively, legally, whatever that might look like on your policy would cease at the time that you closed your business for operations. So just be very aware of that as you make decisions going forward in this unprecedented situation. I'm going to go back to civil authority. So a lot of questions have come up to us about what about the fact that I was closed by somebody else. So here's your civil authority in most policies, and here's how it reads, that in addition to the coverage, civil authority, the described premise are covered when a covered cause of loss, so you have to know what's not covered, damages property other than property of where you're at in the policy, that they will pay for the actual loss of business income you sustain and necessary extra expense caused by the action of civil authority that prohibits access to the described premise, provided that there are some things that you apply. The first says access to the area immediately surrounding the damaged property is prohibited by civil authority as a result of damage, and the described premise are within the area, but not more than a mile from the damaged property. So again, every form's different. This might say half a mile. This might say 1,000 feet. You have to read your form. So it's limiting access, and that the civil authority is taken in response to dangerous physical conditions resulting from the damage or continuation of the covered cause of loss that caused the damage, or the action is taken to enable a civil authority to have unimpeded access to the damaged property. You'll notice 2 lines down, it says 72 hours. So again, extremely important to take a look at what your waiting period is if you are a business that gets income on a day-to-day basis. So like a doctor's office may not, but a restaurant, retail store, any of that stuff where customers buy every day, that would potentially be a very significant loss you were not anticipating paying in the first 72 hours. Here's my example. I'm a restaurant. Next door to me is a retail location, and to the right of me is a gym. I have a fire at my location, so it's clear tomorrow I cannot open. Jumping ahead, it's going to take me 6 months to reopen. During that period of time, I might have some payroll I need to keep, so I can keep my kitchen manager, chef, GM, whatever else that might be, important, critical people. I'm going to have rent I have to pay to my lease, but I don't have any income coming in. I might have my POS system, other expenses, electric, whatever else I had to pay. Those are your extra expenses and ordinary costs that would continue. However, if I have a fire, maybe for 2 weeks, the retail store can't open and the gym can't open. So now you have a situation where the business income applies to me, but civil authority would apply to these guys. If the city came in and shut down this, I'm in a building, say, with 3 locations, shut down access because there's questions about stability, safety, and other things, and they need to come in and clean out stuff and have full access without worrying about property damage or injury to others. So they close down the retail store and close down the gym. For those 2 weeks, these 2 policies for these 2 people, they would go back to their policy under civil authority. And because of damage to a property within, on this form, within, was it a mile, that they would have coverage for their loss of income during that period of time. Do note down here that civil authority always has some sort of limitation. And so in this form, it's 4 weeks. So if I was closed down more than 4 weeks, my own insurance, if I'm the gym or if I'm the retail store, wouldn't cover. My business income as a restaurant usually continues for 12 months. And so that's typically what it is, unless you have a form that limits it, restricts it, has a time frame, monthly limitation. There's a lot of different forms out there, so you really need to read your form. So that's how the civil authority works. Again, it goes back to property damage from a covered cause of loss. So I hope this has been helpful. We're getting a ton of questions on why and how this may or may not be covered. Again, not legal advice, simply reviewing a form, an example form, providing some context for what people are talking about. When our clients are asking, I'm sending their policy, I'm extracting their pages and highlighting it, I'm giving an explanation. If you want to turn a claim in, then go ahead. But we want you to be prepared for what to expect in most likely a denial on the forefront. What happens the next 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, who's to say? So hope this has been helpful. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. You can post questions on this YouTube and I will respond as soon as possible. You can check out our Facebook page. It's MN Insurance Group. So at MN Insurance GRP. Our website is www.mnagent.com. Feel free to use the contact us page and send me a question, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Again, not legal advice, just education. Good luck to everybody during this unprecedented time. Take care of your friends, take care of your neighbors. Try to visit your local restaurants, retail shops, whatever you need to do to help support your community during this time.